Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this week's trade review session and live trading session. Obviously, I was stopped out earlier this morning, very tight stop, and I telegraphed that from the beginning just to retain some of the profit that I've made this week. So stopped out on that. We've removed the stop for this trading session, and we're seeing quite a bit of activity as we head towards this number, and whether this is going to continue to raise inflationary concerns. The euro and sterling have been particularly active. The euro pushing close to parity earlier this morning, far closer than I ever expected it to get, and then sterling coming under pressure for a number of reasons, dollar strength being one of those, but the situation in the UK with Boris Johnson's resignation yesterday and a lack of clarity over what will happen to the government, to the country from this point, and who will be directing it. So I have two trades, one limit bid in sterling, just below the market here at 120.19 or thereabouts for the opening bell, and I have one limit sell order in about 31,475, which has been the high of the last couple of days in the Dow as well, just to see what sort of movement we're going to get in that regard. You can hear my screens on in the background just in relation to the numbers coming through. If we just look at gold, now this is a 1 minute chart that I'm showing here, but you can see the most recent activity in gold steadily climbed from earlier this morning, but we've had a fairly sudden sell-off in the last couple of minutes. It's only a 1 minute chart, so we're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4 candlesticks, all significantly downward, and we're trading towards the lower levels that we've seen over the last couple of days, just below 1740 at the moment. Now the currencies are moving lower, but have had a significant rally, and I want to spend a lot of time looking at the euro when we get time after the non-farm payroll numbers, which are due out in about or just under 7 minutes at the moment. So I want to talk a bit about euro, that descent to parity, and I think what we've seen over the last couple of hours really has been a pick up off of those lows that is very strong. Some would say quite spectacular. But when we're trading towards these new levels, I mean, certainly for me, there would be no appetite to go short as we're testing new lows, not unless you have a lot of firepower and you're able to force the market considerably lower. For me and for you guys as a retail trader, the thing that I would be very worried about would be a bounce to the upside, and obviously we've seen that, and it's been reasonably substantial. Now I'm just about missing here on my sterling trade. I do think there's some life in sterling yet to come. I did I did buy sterling earlier and got stopped out on that trade. It was around the time that there was a lot of talk about the confusion that's going on with the government in the UK and any lack of clear direction in terms to how the succession to Boris Johnson will go, whether he's going to hang around for a period of time, etc. But I still think that this will be resolved. It will be resolved reasonably quickly, and that sterling will hopefully see some support coming back into the market. Did trade up to about 120.50 earlier today, but we're starting to see a bit more fluctuation coming into the markets as I'm talking. Gold has picked up a little bit after collapsing, and the Dow is hovering around 31,440 as I speak. So non-farm payroll, my preference is always to let the number come out and then decide what I'm going to do. I have the limit offer in there. I may just cancel that if we start to trade closer to it prior to the number being announced, just because rather than taking a 50-50 call on what the number is. I was hoping that we would be, or that I would be triggered before the opening bell, and then could make a decision from there. As we get closer to the bell, I'm probably less inclined to leave that order in there and would want to make a decision after I see the number, as opposed to trying to predict and trade around the number. So everybody now in the markets is talking about whether there will be a soft landing to these inflation stories, whether we will see stagflation, whether the risk of inflation will continue over in the short term, and what effect that will have on economic growth, etc. Sterling, unfortunately, I was trying to buy at 120.19. It's rallied back up to 120.28. I will talk about the extra size that I put on these currency trades when we get to the session after the numbers. But for the time being, we'll just watch that and see where they go. As you look around the different products at the moment, gold is holding out towards that 1739, 1740 level, seeing a bit of volatility coming into sterling over the last couple of minutes, back down to 120.23. The unfortunate part of my trades this morning is that ultimately they've all been correct in terms of direction, but I wouldn't have been able to withstand the significant move that we saw lower in the euro. So I'm happy that the stop was employed, that the stop triggered, and that it took me out of the market, because potentially I could have stopped it down at 1.007 or possibly even lower. So we're about 2 3/4 minutes away from the jobs number and the unemployment numbers coming out. The market seems to be reasonably steady. Tends to find that it's in that last 40-50 seconds that we start to see a bit of extreme movement. So I still have my offer in at 475. We're not particularly close to it, so I think I'm happy to keep that there for the time being. If we do have a significant jump, then the limit may get taken out. We're seeing the euro coming off a touch, sterling still holding its ground. The gold is starting to tick a little bit higher, and we're and the Dow reasonably static around 31,440. So got about a minute and a half, just over a minute and a half left to go till this number comes out. So I'll start listening out for the number now. Sterling is getting a little bit closer to my bid. So my bid was 120.19 1. We did actually get a bid there a few minutes ago and saw that rally up to 120.29, but we are close again. So I'm expecting a bit of fluctuation now as we enter the last minute or so, and until the bell, until the numbers come out. The Dow is back at 143, edging above there. Euro still under a little bit of pressure. I'm not quite triggered yet. We've seen the market widen out a little bit there on, so that's a bit cheeky. I'm watching that now. The market's widened out to 6 points on sterling. Don't particularly like that. And we've seen that bit of fluctuation as we get very, very close to the number. So it's a strong number, 372,000. Euro coming under pressure again, and obviously sterling equally so, coming under a bit of pressure there at the moment. The Dow has plummeted, didn't get my trade away. Going to delete that trade at the moment, just so that I don't leave that out there. Now we will see a bit of fluctuation as this starts to go through. The numbers are there. They're going to be they're going to be looked at in a little bit more detail. We see the June jobs number coming in at 372,000. The euro is probably the product. The euro and gold are probably the products that are coming under most pressure at this time. The unemployment rate is holding at 3.6%. Sterling is moving against me a little bit at this time. I'm going to hold it for a little bit. Probably put a stop in as soon as we finish this particular session. But for the time being, I'll hold that where it is. Seeing a bit of buy-in coming through now in the Dow, stabilising the market around 31,370. Sorry, 31,370. Possibly interested in starting to look at the opportunity to buy the Dow. Had a fairly significant drop off there, trading 361. I think I will buy there. I think that buy came in about 355, 360, and just watch where we go from here for the time being. I'll probably run that through to the opening bell as this information starts to properly be assessed by the markets. We've seen a strong market over the last couple of days, specifically in the S&P, which I think is up 4 days in a row and is enjoying one of its best winning streaks since March. So I'll monitor that trade through to the opening bell, and we'll just go and look at some of the trades from this week and how those have been performing. Just bring that up on there. Obviously, the markets are still very preoccupied with what's going on with the 10-year Treasury bond and how that's going to, and how Fed policy is going to affect everything going forward from this particular point. The Dow is coming off a little bit, not really gathering too much momentum to the downside, but there is a bit of selling pressure coming in there at the moment, trading down to about 31,317 as I'm talking. So if I bring up, and as always, please, I do encourage you to send your questions through, and I'll do my best to respond to those. Sterling is recovering a little, trading back up at 119.90. It's been a little bit higher than that, and the Dow continues to fluctuate between about 31,310, 31,350. The markets that did sell off reasonably aggressively at first are starting to find some support and moving back up to the upside, but a much faster market than we've seen over the last couple of days, as all this information starts to disseminate and work its way through the markets at this time. So I'm just going to bring up the trade sheets this week. So another nicely positive week, which I have to be happy with. Predominantly be trading euro and sterling because of the big moves that we've seen. So trying to take opportunities from those. Very rare that I trade the currencies, but with trading close or moving close towards parity, it certainly generated a bit of interest from me. All of the products that I've traded this week do show that the net returns are there, and they've all been reasonably positive. The overall impact has been to the upside, and bar Tuesday, which was a particularly poor day, the days have been reasonably positive since then. And that has resulted in 381 pips of profit so far. So at the moment, as I'm talking, I'm trying to look at my other screen and my phone at the same time as well. Sterling is starting to recover. There's a decent bit of profit in the, nothing huge, but there's a little bit of profit in the Dow trade. but I might just take profit out of the Dow if I can. I will. So I sold there at 31,382, and sterling is starting to recover and move back upwards. So hopefully we'll see a bit of return there in the next few minutes. Doesn't look like I'm going to have a chance to answer any of your questions today, but if you do have questions, please send them through to me on email. I just want to talk a little bit about the euro, because I know that I'm running out of time. A little bit long-winded, unfortunately. Excuse me. Excuse me. I still have hay fever, unfortunately. So this is a 1 minute chart. What I want to do is, this is a daily chart, so you can see this is the lowest that we've seen in quite some time, ever, as far as I'm concerned. That's a weekly chart, so still we're trading very much at the lows. And on a monthly chart, exactly the same. You're going back to, see what year that is, 2003, before we were trading anywhere near these levels, and even then we weren't close. So it is a fairly significant movement that we're seeing in the euro, and we've breezed through a number of support levels as we've moved to this particular point. And it's very, very difficult to suggest where the next support level is, in my opinion. What we have seen with, and you've seen it today, and I think it's very, very apparent today, is that when you trade at these levels, there can be very short, sharp movements or relief rallies. And we've seen one of those today, and that's why I would be reluctant to be short any of the currencies at the time. I do think that there is potential for central bank activity, both from the US and from Europe. And one of the reasons why we see the euro down as low as it is at this particular time is that the belief is that the Fed will be more aggressive than the ECB, and that the ECB will not act as the Fed would if the shoe was on the other foot, effectively. So I think, unfortunately, that I'm about to run out of time. The sterling trade is still moving a little bit against me. I think I had a very brief opportunity there to possibly break even. I'll continue to monitor that for the time being. So we have one open trade. I'm going to get my risk parameters put back up very, very shortly after I end this particular session. But I'll continue to monitor that sterling trade during the remainder of the afternoon. Thank you very much for joining me. I will be active on Telegram during the remainder of the afternoon. I won't be there won't be any more trades than I currently have, but I will be looking to unwind that sterling trade at some point in the very near future. Thank you very much for joining me, and I will speak to you again on Telegram. Thank you.